Recap of Fauda Season 4, Episode 1 English, with spoilers. Fauda S4E1, Recap and Key Developments. Opening and Context. In the wake of Season 3, Doran Cavallio has been living in seclusion, wrestling with guilt and the fallout of his past actions. The premiere reintroduces us to a fractured world. Old alliances are broken, leadership is questioned, and threats loom larger and more complex than before. Major plot beats and scenes. 1. Robbery in Janine and Suspicious Cell. The episode kicks off with a bank robbery attempt in Janine that goes badly. This event draws the attention of Dana, the head of the Israeli security apparatus, who deduces that the cell behind the robbery is suspicious and possibly tied to larger militant networks. Dana begins to trail leads and suspects internal complicity or rogue operators within the Palestinian Authority security branch. 2. Gabby calls on Doran for Brussels mission. Gabby Ayoub Itzik Cohen, previously a trusted team member, asks Doran to travel with him to Brussels. The stated purpose? To meet an important asset who is embedded deeply within a Hezbollah cell. Despite his reluctance and his attempt to stay distanced from fieldwork, Doran is pulled back in, his guilt and sense of responsibility too strong to ignore. 3. Revelation. Suspected militant not dead. The Metacritic summary highlights that a militant long believed dead is discovered to be alive. This revelation forces Doran to re-emerge from retirement. His return is not just tactical, it is personal. The lie of death has haunted many, and now the hidden truth becomes the spark for renewed battle. 4. Doran confronts guilt and loss. Early in the episode, Doran grapples with guilt over the death of a teammate and his own expulsion from the unit. These emotional wounds frame his hesitation and inner conflict. He must reconcile that past while stepping back into a world of danger, knowing that his decisions now may cost lives beyond himself. Themes and character arcs. Return from retirement and identity. Doran's re-emergence is symbolic. He cannot escape his past, and any attempt to retire from this life is thwarted when the stakes rise again. Guilt and redemption. His emotional burden over teammate loss and failure shapes his motivations throughout the episode, setting the stage for redemption arcs. Shadows of the past. The dead militant, being alive reminds us that in Fauda, nothing is settled, secrets can resurrect conflicts thought buried. Complicity and rogue cells. The Janine Robbery and the Suspicious Cell hint at internal splits, betrayals, and factions operating outside official control. Globalization of conflict. The move to Brussels and embedding in Hezbollah territory expands the playing field beyond Israel-Palestine, showing how transnational militancy is part of the emerging threat. Recap of Fauda Season 4 Episode 2 in English. Fauda, Season 4, Episode 2, The Price of the Past. The second episode of Fauda Season 4 picks up immediately after the explosive events that close the premiere. Doran's world, once again, teeters between vengeance, guilt, and the impossible demands of duty. His actions in the previous episode, driven more by emotion than strategy, have already begun to ripple through both the Israeli and Palestinian sides, setting the stage for a darker, more personal war. Opening scene, the fallout in Janine. The episode opens in Janine, a city that has become a pressure cooker of rage and rebellion. Smoke lingers in the air after the gunfire from Doran's unit's failed operation. Local leaders are furious, claiming that the Israelis violated a fragile truce by storming through the refugee camp. In the chaos, Omar, the charismatic and calculating operative introduced in Episode 1, begins to take center stage. He is not just another militant, he's educated, ideologically sharp, and has connections to a wider network stretching into Lebanon and beyond. The death of his cousin, caused indirectly by Doran's actions, becomes the spark that fuels his transformation from a local agitator into a major player in the coming conflict. Doran and the unit under pressure. Back in Israel, Doran's elite Mistarvam team faces the consequences of their failed mission. The higher-ups are furious. Captain Dana, who now oversees the team, warns Doran that his reckless approach has put every agent in jeopardy. She tells him bluntly, "You are not a lone wolf anymore." Doran, however, is haunted. His nightmares replay the ambush. He replays the moment his instinct screamed that something was off, but he pushed forward anyway. The guilt gnaws at him. Even though he saved lives, he feels responsible for every death that occurred on both sides. The tension in the unit thickens. Saggy accuses Doran of ignoring protocol. Eli tries to mediate, reminding everyone that Doran has saved them countless times. But even Eli is starting to lose patience. He can see Doran's trauma clouding his judgment. The return of Maya and Omar's shadow. In parallel, we follow Maya Benyamin, an Arab-Israeli police officer and intelligence asset. She's caught between two worlds, her allegiance to Israel and her blood ties to Omar, her cousin, who is slowly being pulled into a militant network. Through a quiet conversation with her husband, we learn how deeply conflicted she feels. Her husband, Sheer, wants to leave the intelligence work behind, to live a normal life. But Maya knows it's impossible. Her family history and her brother's loyalty to Israel make her a target in her own community. When Maya learns that Omar has resurfaced in Janine, her heart drops. She warns her handler that Omar is more dangerous than anyone realizes. He's not motivated by chaos or money but by purpose. The handler dismisses her concerns. It's a mistake that will cost lives later. New threats, Hezbollah's involvement. The episode expands the battlefield beyond Israel and the West Bank. In a chilling interlude, the camera shifts to Lebanon, where Omar's recent activities have caught the attention of Hezbollah operatives. One of them, a seasoned strategist named Abu Fadi, sees potential in Omar. He believes the chaos in Janine can serve as the perfect front for a larger operation. In a dimly lit Beirut safehouse, Omar is contacted through encrypted channels. The offer is clear: resources, weapons, and protection in exchange for one thing: revenge against Israel. Omar accepts, but his eyes reveal hesitation. Revenge isn't his goal yet, it's justice. But as he falls deeper into this network, that line begins to blur. A trap in the making. Meanwhile, Doran and the team regroup. Intelligence reports suggest a possible high-value meeting in the Janine area involving Omar and a visiting Hezbollah courier. Dana authorizes a covert surveillance mission, not a raid. Doran agrees but secretly begins preparing for an extraction, convinced the meeting will turn violent. During the recon, Saggy and Nurit set up a remote drone feed, watching the compound. The tension builds as the camera zooms in on the faces of armed men entering the meeting site. Suddenly, one of them looks directly into the drone lens, a chilling sign they've been made. Doran's instincts kick in. He orders an immediate pullback, but a hidden IED detonates near the observation point, wounding Saggy. Chaos erupts. Doran runs toward the blast despite orders, dragging Saggy to cover as bullets rain down. They barely escape, rescued by Eli and Nurit in a speeding armored vehicle. The operation fails again, but this time, Dana's fury is replaced with fear. She realizes Omar is not reacting to Israel's moves, he's predicting them. Someone on the inside may be leaking intelligence. The personal and the political collide. Later that night, Doran visits Saggy in the hospital. The team is shaken. Saggy, heavily bandaged, tells Doran that maybe it's time to stop chasing ghosts. Doran doesn't respond. He knows Saggy is right, but he can't let go. His face hardens as he vows to find Omar no matter what it takes. Meanwhile, Omar watches the explosion's aftermath on the news from his hideout. He tells his second-in-command, "They think they're hunting me, but I'm already inside their walls." His confidence grows. At the same time, Maya visits her parents in an Arab town near Haifa. The tension is palpable. Her father refuses to speak Hebrew in her presence, and her mother warns her not to get involved in Omar's mess. But Maya's conscience won't allow her to stay out of it. She calls her Israeli contact, offering to help locate Omar through her family network. The handler accepts, without telling Dana or Doran. Another dangerous secret begins. Doran's breaking point. The final act of the episode centers on Doran alone in his apartment. The weight of the failed operations, his guilt over the civilian casualties, and his family's growing distance consume him. He drinks heavily and reviews drone footage frame by frame, trying to find a clue he missed. He suddenly notices something: a man standing just outside the camera's edge during the ambush. The posture, the stance, the timing, it matches Omar. Doran realizes Omar was not just nearby, he orchestrated the entire setup. The revelation reignites his obsession. He drives in the middle of the night to confront Dana, demanding another mission. She refuses, saying the team needs rest and authorization. Doran storms out, muttering, "Authorization won't save us when he comes for us first." Closing sequence, the circle tightens. The episode closes with a cross-cut sequence. Omar and Janine, looking over new weapons shipments provided by Hezbollah, promising his men that the next strike will burn their illusion of control. Doran alone in the shooting range, emptying clip after clip into a target until the paper burns. Maya, on the phone with her secret contact, saying quietly, "Tell them Omar is moving. But don't tell Doran." The screen fades to black as ominous music swells, a haunting mix of Middle Eastern strings and heartbeat-like percussion, signaling that Fauda Season 4's web of loyalty, betrayal, and vengeance has only begun to tighten. Recap of Fauda Season 4, Episode 3 English, spoilers ahead. Fauda S4E3, Recap and Key Events. Episode Synopsis. According to Rotten Tomatoes, the central events are greater than, the squad presses forward in the search for Gabby, leading to a high-stakes operation in a crowded apartment block. Nurit confesses a secret to Doran. IMDb episode listing also states, greater than, Doran and the team find Ayoub's location in Brussels. Meanwhile, Maya is investigated by the Shabak about her ties to her brother. Her husband Amos suspects she's hiding something. So episode 3 continues the chase for Gabby, starts to unravel hidden loyalties, and puts pressure on Maya's identity. Major plot beats and developments. 1. Finding Ayoub, locating Gabby's trail. The Israeli team advances intelligence that leads them to Ayoub's location in Brussels. This is a critical lead. They believe Ayoub is connected to Gabby's disappearance or holds information about his whereabouts. Their operations move from broader surveillance to intervention. They must act, infiltrate, and confirm what they've found. 2. High-stakes operation in dense urban locale. Armed with this intelligence, the squad executes a tactical operation inside a crowded apartment building or block. This urban environment increases risk. Bystanders, narrow hallways, multiple exits, ambush points. The tension is high. A misstep could endanger civilians, expose operatives, or allow the targets to flee. 3. Nurit's confession. Meanwhile, Nurit, a longtime operative in the team, confesses a secret to Doran. This moment is personal, emotional, and carries potential consequences for trust within the unit. The nature of the secret is not fully public in summaries, but it suggests internal strain, hidden motives, or suppressed guilt. 4. Maya under investigation, spousal suspicion. Maya, Omar's sister, comes under scrutiny from the Shabak, Israeli internal security. They dig into her past, her ties to her brother Omar, and possibly her own loyalties. Her husband, Amos, begins to suspect Maya is hiding something. Their relationship is strained by suspicion and secrecy. Themes and character implications. Trust and betrayal. Nurit's confession heightens the theme that even within the team, secrets lurk, and loyalty is fragile under pressure. Identity and duality. Maya's dual position, as law enforcement officer and sister to Omar, puts her in a precarious spot. Her investigation shows how identities collide in conflict zones. Urban tactic and risk. The operation in the apartment block illustrates the dangers of urban warfare. Civilians are mixed in, cover is thin, and error is costly. Momentum in the chase. The findings in Brussels mark a turning point. This is no longer just pursuit, it becomes a race to intercept before the trail cools or before Gabby is moved again. When the dust settles, the real violence is not in the explosion, it's in the secrets that change hands afterwards. Spoilers for Fauda, Season 4, Episode 4 ahead. The dust from the raid still hangs in the air like a held breath. Streets hum with the small, brutal business of recovery while the team, and the state machinery that backs them, count the cost. What was supposed to be decisive has become a ripple of consequences. Questions at headquarters, whispers of error, faces that won't meet each other in the briefing room. Adil turns those ripples into a weapon. What he took from Ayoub is not just names or routes, it's a map of trust. He uses it with cold, precise cruelty, striking inside the places the team thought secure. Each attack feels personal because it started inside their house. The enemy didn't break a wall, they read a ledger. Doran returns like a man carrying an unlit fuse. He refuses to name the worst, as if naming it would make it true. That denial is not naivete so much as a fragile armor. he believes that hope can be tactical. But hope alone doesn't hold back the tide, it only keeps a man standing long enough to choose again. Maya's phone becomes a slow drumbeat of dread. Anonymous messages creep into her life, domestic and invasive, blurring the line between family and suspicion. Every ping tightens the knot of loyalty she wears around her neck. Where does blood end and duty begin? And Dana, pragmatic, relentless, leans on a new, sweating source. She knows sources break, she knows secrets rot unless someone tends to them. Her pressure is clinical urgency, the leader's calculus when the margin for error narrows to zero. Themes that echo after the credits. Information is ammunition. Knowledge gathered for protection becomes the blueprint for attack. Denial is survival. Doran's refusal is equal parts courage and danger. Isolation of the watched. Maya's messages turn intimate space into hostile terrain. Fragility of human intel. Dana's hunch shows how the whole machine depends on one small, mortal hinge. In the wake of the strike, the country demands an answer. Shinbed sharpens its knives, Raphael offers a dangerous kind of salvation, and Doran stands between what must be done and what he can live with. When revenge becomes policy, the real battle is keeping what's left of your humanity. Spoilers ahead. Full spoilers for Fauda Season 4, Episode 5. The episode opens not with an explosion but with the aftertaste of one. Quiet rooms, tired faces, a nation that's suddenly holding its breath. The raid's echoes ricochet through concrete corridors and glass offices. Shinbed's halls that once hummed with cold procedure now crackle with an anger that smells like urgency and a need for revenge. This is not rhetorical fury, it is a machine revving, steel grinding toward retribution. Doran walks into that friction like a man who has learned to carry heat. He is the human center in a government instrument that prefers binaries, success and failure, guilt and absolution, but Doran lives in the gray seam between. Shinbed's mobilization turns the seam into a pressure cooker. Targets must be found, answers must be given, and someone must take responsibility. The agency's appetite for retaliation is not just strategic, it's moral theater. They want the ledger balanced, the narrative closed. For Doran, every ordered retaliation is also a ledger of a different kind. Names, faces, the weight of choices he's already made. Enter Raphael. He is not a storm but a steady tide that changes coast slowly and inexorably. Raphael pitches a mission, not framed in abstract language but in the currency Doran knows best: chances to prevent more blood, to get ahead of an enemy that has proven how dangerous insider knowledge can be. The mission Raphael offers is raw with moral consequence. It asks Doran to cross lines that used to be smudged with hesitation. It asks him to trade a piece of himself for operational clarity. Raphael's words are clinical, persuasive, and quietly ruthless. There is a cost, and someone must pay it. Saggy's arc in this episode acts as the human thermometer. He receives unexpected news, a private bolt from a public conflict, and it's not just the content of the news that wounds him, it's the timing. In the small hours, on the drive, or in the cramped privacy of a dorm, Saggy's reaction betrays the larger truth. Men trained to be instruments of the state carry private debris that sometimes explodes at the worst possible moment. His shock softens the team's edges for a second, exposes vulnerabilities beneath the tactical swagger. We watch loyalty shift, not because anyone declared war on the unit, but because life, messy and indifferent, intrudes where plans were supposed to be ironclad. The unit's cohesion strains under three simultaneous forces: the external roar of Shinbed demanding results, Raphael's seductive but dangerous new path, and the internal tremor of Saggy's personal crisis. Friends who have moved like a single organism through past seasons find themselves stepping around each other, not from malice but from fatigue, doubt, and the quiet calculus of survival. Trust, once an asset taken for granted, becomes negotiable. What the episode does best is not in its action beats but in the small, human decisions that reveal character. Doran's pauses, the way he lingers over a photograph, the way he answers a question with a question, tell us more than handguns or raids. Raphael's pitch is a study in compromise. He doesn't coerce so much as present inevitability. Saggy's face, emptied of its usual bravado, asks the viewer to remember that operatives are not archetypes but men who love, fear, and forget to forgive themselves. Underlining it all is a theme that has threaded Fauda from its first chapter: the cost of retribution. Shinbed's hunger for retaliation is understandable, it is also contagious. Quick retaliation calms voters and bureaucrats, but it carries an intangible ledger. Grief begets grief, and decisions made in hot rooms reverberate in cold homes. Raphael's mission promises results, but it also threatens to sever the soft places left to Doran, places where pity, memory, and restraint live. And yet, in this pressure, the episode finds fragile moments of beauty. A shared cigarette between team members becomes a fragile ritual of solidarity. A confidential whisper carries the weight of years. A lone hand on a shoulder becomes a promise. We will go through this together, even if together means mourning side by side. The episode refuses to glamorize violence, instead it commits to showing its arithmetic, losses counted in human names, gains tallied in empty chairs. The episode closes on a tone that is not triumphal but resolute. Shinbed will act, Raphael's mission will proceed, whether Doran signs or not. Sagi will carry his news like a stone that will change the way he walks. The team is still a team, but now it carries new fissures that will shape choices in episodes to come. You leave this chapter less certain that any victory will be clean, you leave believing this: there will always be someone who pays, and sometimes that someone is the part of you that thought you were invincible. In the aftermath of one brave gamble, trust begins to crack. A man's unauthorized plan forces a unit to choose between speed and discipline. An enemy builds the tools to change the battlefield, not just a neighborhood, but an entire horizon. Doran and Maya cross a border that alters them, the team is left to count the cost. When the fight grows bigger, the smallest decisions become the heaviest. This is Fauda at a tipping point. Spoilers for Fauda, Season 4, Episode 6 ahead. Recap: the storyteller's cut. Long, human, and quietly devastating. The episode opens on small, ordinary things that carry too much meaning now: an unfinished cup of coffee cooling on a windowsill, a list of orders half crossed out, a message left unread on a phone. Those little details are the leftover currency of an earlier choice, a single reckless spark that has begun to burn through everything around it. This chapter of the story isn't about spectacle, it's about consequence. It's about how a single decision, made in heat and urgency, unthreads the fabric that keeps a group together. Sagi makes that choice. He acts without permission, driven by urgency, by a hunger to strike back, by a conviction that waiting will cost lives. He sets a trap to lure Adil out, to force the enemy into daylight. It's bold, it's brave, it's unauthorized. The moment the plan is set in motion, the unit feels it, a glass shield fractures. Trust, the invisible armor every team depends on, starts to crack. People begin to squint at each other across the table, measuring loyalty like evidence. Was Sagi's act heroism or hubris? The question spreads like a stain. While the team argues with itself, Adil stops playing small. He's no longer content with hit-and-run tactics. With help from Lebanese experts, he begins to assemble something far more dangerous: missile infrastructure. This is escalation, not theater. What once could be contained on a street or in a valley now threatens a wider horizon. The stakes shift. The battles are no longer local skirmishes but moves that can redraw lives and cities. The threat is strategic, long-term, and indifferent to the rules that men cling to in operations rooms. Into that widening danger walk Doran and Maya, across a line that is both physical and existential. They cross the border into Lebanon, toward Omar's village, and every mile they travel bends the story. This journey is part pursuit, part pilgrimage. In Lebanon the map is layered with memory, old loyalties, ancient grievances, and faces who have known each other for generations. The terrain tests them in ways checkpoints never could. Doran, weathered and steady, is forced to measure what he will trade to stop a growing menace. Maya, whose allegiances are braided with family and duty, finds herself negotiating a tangle of loyalties that pulls at her in unexpected ways. Their crossing isn't a plot device, it's a mirror that shows how far people will go and how far they will change on the way. Back at the base, the unit unravels in quiet ways. The fallout of Sagi's unilateral move is not always loud, it seeps into briefings, lingers in pauses, and alters how people read a room. Someone avoids another's gaze, someone else tightens their voice. The trust that took years to build is whittled by a single choice and the suspicion it breeds. Teams survive explosions, they die under the slow corrosion of doubt. The episode makes this painfully clear: cohesion is not a given. It is fragile and easily spent. The episode's power comes less from gunfire and more from these small human beats. Saggy staring at an empty chair tells more than a firefight. Doran and Maya's quiet talk in the back of a rusted car reveals more than a tactical plan. A dropped cigarette, a map folded and refolded, a hand that lingers on a shoulder for a second too long, these are the moments that register the cost. The writers place us inside the moral arithmetic. Quick action can save lives, but unilateral action can destroy trust. Escalation can deter enemies, but it also creates enemies on a wider scale. The missile program changes the terms of the fight, it turns hostile intent into potentially catastrophic capability. The question becomes not just whether the unit can stop it, but what the unit will become in the attempt. Will it remain human, or will it sacrifice pieces of itself for the sake of survival? And yet the episode does not surrender to despair. In the small rituals, a shared cigarette, a joke that lands despite the tension, a look that says, "I've got you," there is stubborn tenderness. The characters are not cartoon heroes, they are people who laugh when they can and grieve in private when they must. That humanity makes every tactical choice heavier. It also makes their courage meaningful. They are not just instruments, they are people paying for choices in the quiet places no one sees. By the closing moments the picture is no longer neat. Adel's program continues to loom. The unit is fractured but not finished. Doran and Maya have crossed territory that will change them. Saggy must live with the result of his gamble, and everyone else must live with the knowledge that one man's need to act can alter the future of the whole team. The episode ends not on a triumphant note but on an accounting of debts, moral debts, emotional debts, strategic debts. The ledger is long, and the bill will come due. Themes and why this episode matters. Trust is fragile armor. One unauthorized act exposes how quickly cohesion can disintegrate when individuals break protocol. Escalation from guerrilla to strategic threat. Building missile infrastructure with outside help transforms local conflict into regional danger. Borders as emotional geography. Crossing into Lebanon is more than movement on a map, it's an entrance into histories and loyalties that shift who the characters are. Moral cost of speed. Immediate action may save people now but can erode the team's long-term survival and soul. Humanity amid duty. Small moments of tenderness are what make the stakes feel real and painful. Small, vivid beats that cut the deepest. Saggy staring at an empty commander's chair, the visible cost of a hidden choice. Doran and Maya, in a quiet car, admitting that some outcomes can't be fixed but must be borne. A map full of red pins that stops being a schematic and becomes a ledger of people. A cigarette passed from one hand to another, a vow of solidarity that is both fragile and defiant. Poetic closing, cinematic beat. They went across a line to chase a person and returned carrying the weight of what choices had made of them. Borders in this story are never just lines on a map, they are seams in people's lives. When those seams are pulled, the shape of everyone inside them changes forever. Fauda, Season 4, Episode 7. Cinematic, inspiring recap, spoilers ahead. When a secret lights a room, plans unravel and people reveal themselves. Tonight, Doran and Maya improvise on the run, Omar must choose what he'll protect, and the price of bringing people home becomes painfully clear. Fauda asks, when survival demands a choice, who do you have to become? Cinematic, inspiring recap, spoilers ahead. When a secret becomes a beacon, everything changes. Plans fold, allies become mirrors, and a single leak turns maps into traps. Tonight, Doran and Maya improvise on the run, Omar faces a choice that will define him, and a prisoner exchange becomes the hardest bargain of all. This is Fauda at its most human, when survival asks who we are, and the answer costs more than we imagined. The whisper that becomes war. The worst disasters begin quiet. A secret slips, a route becomes compromised, certainty turns to doubt. A leak is not only intelligence lost, it is trust eroded. That whisper remaps the field and makes every step a question. Act 1. Improvisation is survival. Doran and Maya stop running plans and start making decisions by instinct. Cars are left to idle. Paths meant for animals become cover, decoys and half-truths by minutes that feel like lifetimes. These improvisations do more than save them, they show who they are. Doran's calm is earned, Maya's choices are moral as well as tactical. In the pressure of the moment, trust becomes currency, spent freely and sacredly. Act 2, Omar's impossible choice. Omar stands at a private crossroads. This is not strategy but identity: protect family or hold to a cause that may consume those you love. His dilemma reframes the chase as an inner battle. War asks for clear answers and returns only impossible ones. Omar's decision is less spectacle and more sorrow. It will change how he walks, speaks, and sleeps. Act 3, the ledger of consequences. Beyond the field, bureaucracy and bargaining click into motion. Moreno traces steps. Doran's dealings with Sharpens blur lines between leverage and humanity. The prisoner exchange becomes arithmetic made of live flesh, concessions, bargains, and moral wear. Every bargain Doran strikes chips away at pieces of himself: dignity, ease, the right to sleep without ghosts. Small human beats, a cigarette passed in silence, a folded scrap of paper clutched like a talisman, a child's drawing in a safe house that makes a man remember what victory once looked like. Omar pausing, choosing how to say no without burning a bridge. These are the moments that turn tactics into tragedy and courage into heartbreak. Adaptability costs who we think we are. Trust is a strategic asset, leaks are social weapons. Loyalty is a spectrum that can break a man. War's victories are measured by what we surrender. Quiet courage. By episode's end there's no clean triumph, only balance is made for a moment. The heroes return altered, debts registered in their bodies and choices. The uplift is small: admiration for those who improvise courage in impossible times, and a sober ache for what those choices cost. True bravery here is mundane and relentless, the steady work of choosing who you will be when every map is burned. Fauda, Season 4, Episode 8. Cinematic, inspiring recap, spoilers ahead. When a single tip lights a quiet room, everything changes. Tonight, a garage in Janine becomes the hinge of a hunt. Maya moves from contact to companion, Doran follows where orders forbid, and the line between duty and human compassion blurs. Fauda asks, how do you fight a war without losing the people you were fighting to protect? A single tip becomes the hinge of a hunt. Dana's quiet clue points Eli's team to a nondescript garage in Janine, ordinary, oily, overlooked, and the ordinary suddenly snaps into significance. What looks like a mechanic's back room becomes a map of a network: cars, toolboxes, licenses, the small logistics that make violence move. The raid is methodical and tense, every photographed detail is a thread to pull later. Maya finds Aisha, not as closure but as complication. Their meeting isn't an endpoint, it opens a new corridor of choices. Aisha brings memory, a face, a lead, and the reminder that the people behind intelligence are people first. Maya must keep both roles at once: the operative who needs facts, and the woman who remembers the lives those facts represent. When Maya meets Omar's wife and chooses to go with her, the episode shifts from tactics to intimacy. This is proximity as strategy. Going into a family's space buys access a satellite never could. It's risky, exposing, humane. In that choice Maya rejects distance for presence, and presence both endangers and enlightens. Doran disobeys Raphael and follows them. His choice is not simple insubordination, it's a wager on being where the truth lives. He finds intelligence, yes, but also faces the human cost of getting close. The encounter forces Doran to reconcile command room logic with the messy reality inside living rooms and kitchens. Disobedience here becomes moral calculus. Being present may save people in ways orders cannot predict. Small beats anchor the drama: a grease-streaked wrench that tells a mechanic's schedule, a scar on Aisha's wrist that becomes testimony, a folded scarf wrapped like armor, Doran pausing at a threshold before stepping into consequence. These moments turn procedure into poetry. Autonomy versus obedience, the human architecture of intelligence, risk is a moral currency, and how personal ties complicate strategy. Emotional throwline: strategy and family blur until they're indistinguishable. The garage yields clues but not certainty. Maya's contact deepens the quest, Doran's presence uncovers truths orders might miss. Victory here is a ledger of choices, each stamped with cost. A lead is a small light in a dark room, useful, blinding if you stare too long. Sometimes you walk toward it, sometimes you shade your eyes and step around. Courage in this world is the quiet, ongoing work of entering other people's houses and listening. Fauda, Season 4, Episode 9, Spoilers. Title: The Edge of Trust. When a plan begins to shake, truth becomes a weapon, and a wound. Episode 9 is where faith, doubt, and desperation collide. Everyone wants to bring Ayoub home, but no one knows who's telling the truth anymore. The weight of a secret. The episode opens in silence. Doran's eyes on Omar say more than his words ever could. The room feels like a pressure cooker, trust is the first casualty. Doran pushes, pleads, provokes. Omar's answers come slow, careful, measured like a man who knows every word could decide who lives and who doesn't. But doubt leaks in like smoke. Doran's instincts, forged by loss and lies, whisper that something is off. Omar could be the key, or the detonator. Raphael's wall of caution. Raphael, watching from a distance, refuses to gamble, lives on half-truths. He wants evidence, verification, certainty. But certainty is a luxury war doesn't give. His skepticism becomes another kind of risk, hesitation that could cost Ayoub his life. Between Doran's urgency and Raphael's restraint lies the moral battlefield of this episode. Act too fast, and you burn. Wait too long, and you lose everything. Hajj Ali's shadow plan. While the Israelis debate, Hajj Ali moves in silence. Trucks are loaded, routes memorized, and bribes whispered through border checkpoints. Every detail in his smuggling plan is a heartbeat in a fragile body of hope. One mistake, one loose word, and Ayoub disappears forever. Hajj Ali's mission feels less like logistics and more like faith, faith that somewhere in the chaos, someone still keeps their promises. Eli's choice. Eli steps forward when no one else will. His voice doesn't rise, but its steadiness cuts through the tension. We're going in. It's not bravado, it's resignation, the quiet courage of someone who knows what this mission could cost. He's not chasing glory, he's chasing redemption. This decision shifts the tone from waiting to movement, from talk to fire. The team's unity is their strength, but also their burden, each man carrying ghosts from missions that never ended cleanly. The revelation, and then comes the turn. A truth surfaces, a shocking revelation that flips loyalties and burns old maps. It's the kind of truth that doesn't free anyone, it chains them tighter to what they can't escape. The mission to rescue Ayoub isn't what it seemed. Maybe it never was. Maybe it's all part of someone else's design. Doran's realization isn't loud, it's heavy, a silent quake that redefines everything. What it means to believe. By the end, no one stands where they began. Doran has questions no victory could answer. Omar walks away with eyes that have seen too much. Eli prepares his team for a mission that may not bring anyone home. This episode isn't about tactics, it's about faith under fire. When truth fractures and trust turns liquid, only belief keeps people moving. Not belief in politics or promises, but in each other. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is move forward with a map you no longer trust, because standing still means losing more than your life. Fauda, Season 4, Episode 10, Spoilers. Title: The Cost of Coming Home. When everything burns, truth shows its real shape. Episode 10 is the season's breaking point, a symphony of chaos, courage, and consequence. Every second is a fuse. Every choice, a scar. The ambush that feels like fate. The team crouches in the stillness of the highway, the air so tense it hums. Engines idle, eyes scan the horizon. This is not just another mission, it's a desperate gamble against time itself. Doran leads with the steadiness of a man who's lost too much to fear losing again. Every breath counts. The convoy approaches, headlights carving through the dark. The ambush unfolds like clockwork, but in Fauda, no clock ever runs smooth. Shots echo, smoke curls, and what begins as a tactical maneuver turns into something primal, the fight to bring one man home and keep the soul of the team intact. Omar's ghost and the fragile truth. The intelligence that drives the mission, the coordinates, the routes, all came from Omar. But Omar is gone now, leaving behind intel that feels like a riddle and a legacy that cuts both ways. His truth still guides them, even from the grave. Trusting it feels like faith in something you can't prove. Every radio call, every detour, is haunted by his absence. His choices ripple through the episode like aftershocks of a man who couldn't save himself but might just save others. Eli's last mission. Eli's voiceover calms is calm, but beneath it runs fatigue, the kind that seeps into bone. He's been to this edge too many times. As the operation unfolds, you can see his resolve harden. This will be his final run. Not out of defeat, but because he finally understands the cost. Retirement isn't surrender, it's survival, a way to stop paying the price of endless wars that no longer end. Maya's mourning, Doran's quiet fire. Back home, Maya mourns Omar. The grief isn't loud, it's heavy, slow, almost sacred. She folds his memory like a flag, a reminder that loyalty and love can live on opposite sides of the same border. Doran, meanwhile, tends to Aoub, a man rescued but broken. In those moments, Doran's silence says what words can't. Sometimes victory is just getting someone out alive, even if neither of you really make it home. The sky burns, and then, Janine. Otto finishes his grim work. Missiles roar skyward, streaks of light cutting across the night. While Doran's team fights to save one man, another war is already beginning. The rescue is personal, the rockets are political. Together, they remind us, every victory in Fauda is temporary, every peace fragile. What it all meant. Episode 10 isn't a finale, it's a reckoning. It asks whether saving one life can ever balance the weight of all that's lost along the way. Whether trust is bravery or blindness. Eli walks toward quiet. Maya walks through grief. Doran stands in the smoke, knowing that peace isn't a place, it's a pause between storms. In the end, they brought Gabby home. But home is just another battlefield, only this one fights you from the inside. Fauda, Season 4, Episode 11, spoilers ahead. Title: The Weight of What's Left Behind. The guns have fallen silent, but the echoes are louder than ever. Episode 11 is not about action, it's about aftermath. The kind of silence that follows chaos, when everyone counts what's been lost and wonders if anything was truly won. Mourning Omar. Maya and her family sit in the heavy quiet of grief. The house feels smaller, as if walls themselves have absorbed sorrow. Omar's death isn't just the loss of a brother, it's the collapse of an idea, a bridge that tried to connect two impossible worlds. Maya's mourning is more than tears, it's confrontation. She faces the pieces of the man she loved and the choices that tore him apart. Her silence says what no eulogy can. War doesn't just kill people, it rewrites who they were. Doran and Aoub, healing what can't be healed. Doran takes care of Aoub, the man he fought so hard to save. But rescue doesn't end when the hostage is freed, it begins. Aoub's body is out of the cage, but his mind is still there, replaying captivity in invisible loops. Doran watches him, powerless to fix what war does to a man's soul. Still, he stays, because that's what brothers in battle do. They hold each other up when nothing else can. Eli's goodbye. Eli decides to retire, not out of weakness, but wisdom. Years of leading, losing, and surviving have carved too many ghosts into him. His decision feels like a quiet rebellion, a refusal to let the mission be the only thing that defines him. For once, he chooses life over duty. It's one of the show's most human moments, realizing that stepping back can be an act of courage, too. Adel's fire in Janine. While others grieve, Adel finishes his work in Janine. The missile launches, cutting through the sky like a statement that grief on one side always breeds fury on the other. The shot is more than metal and flame, it's the continuation of a story that refuses to end. Every launch, every retaliation, writes another chapter in a book no one wants to read, yet everyone keeps contributing to. Aoub's return to purpose. Despite the trauma, Aoub refuses to remain broken. He approaches Dana with an idea, something bold, maybe desperate, but his own. It's his way of saying, "I'm not done yet." In that small act, the show reminds us that survival isn't just breathing, it's reclaiming agency. Even after darkness, a spark can still ignite. Episode 11 feels like standing in the ruins and realizing the ruins are still alive. Grief and duty, loss and purpose, they coexist, tangled and inseparable. Maya buries a brother, Doran holds a friend, Eli walks away, and Aoub begins again. The world hasn't healed, but the people, somehow, still move forward. Because in Fauda, Survival isn't triumph, it's endurance. Fauda Season 4, Episode 12, Recap and Reflection, spoilers ahead. The finale of Fauda Season 4 is a storm of emotion and sacrifice, a battlefield where faith and fate collide. The funeral trap. Omar's funeral becomes a stage for deception. The Israeli team hides among the mourners, hoping to draw out Adil, the man behind the chaos. But Adil is always one step ahead. The funeral turns from a quiet moment of grief into a deadly ambush. Gunfire rips through the air. The line between hunter and hunted blurs in seconds. When everything falls apart, Eli, Sagi, and Steve are struck down in the chaos. Doran, bloodied but relentless, refuses to fall. Every heartbeat becomes a battle, every breath a prayer. In the smoke and screams, he chases Adil, not just to stop him, but to end the war inside himself. The final confrontation. Doran corners Adil, the two men locked in a brutal dance of rage and revenge. It's not just a fight, it's the story of two worlds colliding, both born of pain. When Doran finally ends Adil's life, victory feels hollow. The silence that follows is heavier than the gunfire. The last image. The camera lingers. Doran, lying wounded beside his fallen brothers, their hands reaching for each other. No words, only breath, dust, and prayer. Was it worth it? Did anyone truly win? Sacrifice. Every victory in Fauda costs more than it gives. Faith and fate. Prayers rise even in the ruins. Ambiguous victory. Adil is dead, but so much else dies with him. If you liked it, subscribe to my YouTube channel for more recaps like this.